Okay, so this is part 2 of adjusting entries na reviewer. Pero binawasan natin yung question, ginawa natin 10 lang para medyo mas maiksi yung oras at mas manageable on your end. Maiksi kasi nga, di ba, ang inyong mga attention span. Now, proceed tayo sa question number 1. Ang tanong, the broad classification of adjusting entries are closing and trials, trials and deferrals, accrual and deferrals, or accruals and closing. O alam ko naman na may mga trials kayo ngayon, pinagdadaanan ninyo yung pagsubok ng accounting, pero hindi yan yung sagot. Tanggalin na natin itong may trial sa selection. Ang matitira sa iyo ay accruals and deferrals and accrual and closing. O yung closing, ang tinutukoy niyan, possible is your closing entries. So ang ating sagot ay accruals and deferrals. O review na rin. Your accruals are your accrued expenses and accrued income. Samantalang yung deferrals mo ay ang inyong prepaid expenses and unearned revenue. Proceed tayo sa question number 2. The amount of accrued but unpaid expenses at the end of the period is both an expense and an asset, an income, a liability, or a deferral. O remember the duality of an accounting transaction. Although isang transaction yan, pero dual effect. May debit ka, may credit. So, unpaid expenses na inaccrue, that is an expense and a liability. Debit, accrued expense, credit, accrued liability. O kunwari, that is accrued salaries, debit, salaries expense, credit, salaries payable. Okay, so that is question number 2. For question number 3, the question is, a prepaid expense is not an expired cost, an economic resource, an expired cost, or asset. Ang tinatanong, ano yung hindi? Expired cost. Ano yung expired cost? Di ba? Ang prepaid expense, during adjusting process, tinatransfer natin yung nagamit na portion from the balance sheet papunta sa income statement. Yung expired portion na yan, that is your expense account. Ang matitira, an expired portion, that is your balance sheet. So, the prepaid expense is not an expired cost. An expired cost, that is your prepaid expense. O yung prepaid expense mo, asset, that's why it is an economic resource. O asset. Ayan. So, ang sagot natin ay expired cost. For the question number 4, ang tanong, entries required at the end of an accounting period to bring the accounts up to date and to ensure the proper matching of income and expenses are called matching entries, adjusting entries, correcting entries, or contra entries. O entries required at the end of an accounting period para maitama natin and ma-ensure na nasusundan natin yung matching principle. Siyempre, that is your adjusting entries. Next, question number 5. From the viewpoint of the company receiving the cash, an item that represents services that have been paid for by the customer but have not yet been provided to the customer by the company which received the cash is called accrued revenue, accrued expense, unearned revenue, or prepaid expense. O eto, medyo tricky yung question. Parang nilalaro tayo, ano? Mula daw sa point of view ng company na nakatanggap ng pera, ano ang tawag doon sa services na binayaran na pero hindi pa na ipoprovide kung ano yung hinihingi ni customer? O syempre, dahil services ito na tinatanong, tapos ikaw yung company na magpa-perform ng service, tanggalin na natin si expenses. Ang iwan na lang natin is yung revenue. And alam natin na yung accrued revenue is wala ka pang nakolekta pero nakapag-provide ka na ng service. Samantalang yung unearned revenue, hindi ka pa nag-provide ng service pero nakakolekta ka na. Ang tinutukoy nitong statement is the unearned revenue. Next, question number 6. An item that represents services provided by a firm for which it will receive payment in the future. Okay, services na i-provide ng company, yun yung tinutukoy ng firm, for which it will receive payment in the future. Ano yun? Remember, service is already provided, pero wala pang bayad. Is it prepaid expense, or unearned revenue, or accrued revenue, or accrued expense? Dahil services yan, provided by the firm, tanggalin na ulit natin yung dalawang expenses, ang itira na lang natin ang revenue accounts. Ito yung kabaliktaran kanina. This is your accrued revenue. Question number 7. Under the recognition principle, revenue is recorded at the end of the adjusting period, after it has been earned but not before, at the earliest possible or at the earliest acceptable time, at the latest acceptable time. Ano yung sagot dyan? Revenue recognition principle states that for us to recognize income, it should be earned, no? So dito, ang sagot mo, after it has been earned, but not before. Hindi pwedeng at the end of the adjusting period. O kaya naman, at the earliest acceptable time or at the latest acceptable time. Okay, so that is your answer. Question number 8 naman tayo. If a 2,500 adjustment for depreciation is omitted, which of the following financial statement errors will occur? Remember, financial statement. Hindi dito sinasabi na income statement lang or balance sheet. Pag hindi ka nakapag-record ng depreciation expense, ang profit mo ba will be understated? Your asset will be understated? Your owner's equity will be overstated? Or the expenses will be overstated? Umpisahan natin sa unang choice. Ang profit mo daw ba ay ma-understate? Kapag wala kang expense na na-record, kokonti yung expense mo sa dapat na halaga niya. So, sobra ang magiging profit mo. Mali ito kasi dapat overstated. Yung asset mo ba will be understated? Kunwari, equipment hindi ka nagkaroon ng accumulated depreciation. Kontra asset yon. So, kung 100,000 ang iyong book value, yung balanse ng iyong equipment, pero dapat meron kang accumulated depreciation, kunwari 10,000. So, dapat 90,000 na lang yung net value nun. Overstated yung asset mo. Mali ito kasi ang sabi dito, understated. Owner's equity will be overstated. Dito, profit mo, overstated. Pag transfer mo yan sa equity, yung equity account mo, yung capital mo, will also be overstated. So, ito yung tamang sagot. Yung expense mo, mali yan kasi dapat understated naman yan. Question number 9 naman tayo. The question is, adjusting entries help to properly measure the period's profit or loss, or assign revenues to the period in which they are earned, bring assets and liability accounts to correct balances, or all of the choices. Either meron ditong isang tama or tama yan lahat, kaya ang magiging sagot mo ay all of the choices. Ang adjusting entries ba tumutulong para ma-measure ng tama yung profit or loss? That is correct. Does it also assign revenues to the period in which they are earned? That is also correct. Syempre, dalawa na yung tama. So, malamang all of the choices yung sagot dyan. Pero, yung pangatlo, basahin lang natin bring asset and liability accounts to correct balances. Yes, that is also correct. Last question tayo for question number 10. The decrease in usefulness of property and equipment as time passes is called consumption, deterioration, depreciation, or depression. Yung last choice, yun yung mga sagot ng mga depressed na. Pero dapat, ito pa rin yung isagot mo. Depreciation. Okay, submit na natin yung ating mga sagot. Dapat perfect tayo dito. Okay, so perfect yung score natin, 10 out of 10. So meron na naman kayong additional 10 questions to review. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.